everyone. We're excited to get started. I'm Ann Gregg from the Lewis Prize, and I will be having a conversation today with Brandon Steppe from the David's Harp Foundation. I'll just pause for 20 seconds just to let everybody sit in their chair comfortably, but we will get started in just a moment. I know when I sit in a chair, it reminds me to pull my shoulders back, sit up straight. All right. Well, thanks for everyone who's joining on Zoom and also on Facebook Live. Really excited to have everyone participating today. And this is the second of the webinars that the Lewis Prize has done about the Accelerator Awards and the process. That application is live right now, and the deadline is August 21st. Today's conversation is to get to know one of the Accelerator Awardees, and we're really, really fortunate to have with us Brandon Steppe, who is the founder and executive director and leader extraordinaire of the David's Harp Foundation. We're going to talk about the Accelerator Award process and what that was like for him, so you can get one person's perspective. And we're also going to have some time for Q&A. The purpose of today is to get to know Brandon and David's Harp Foundation as an example. And so you may hear things that relate to what you're thinking, but we really want to encourage you as you're listening today to think about what your application would mean in your own authentic voice, with your own authentic programming and your own vision. So hopefully today is helpful just to hear us talk a little bit about things, but as you're listening, please stay true to yourself and think about what it means for your own organization. I will also say, and we'll recap this at the end, there are lots of ways to stay in touch with us after today, and we'll make sure that you know all of those. Also, there was a webinar that was already done on the award process, more from a technical standpoint, to really walk in and out of the application. So that is posted on the Lewis Prize website, and if you weren't a participant in that webinar, you can access that as well. And as I said, we'll have time for Q&A. Before we get into talking about Brandon, we wanted to just share a little bit about who the David's Harp Foundation is, and wanted to do that through a short video. So we'll watch that together now, and then we'll talk to Brandon more.
So my name is Brandon Steppe. I'm the director and founder of the David's Harp Foundation, and we're a nonprofit here in San Diego County that's a creative youth development organization, which means we use the platform of music to be able to earn mentoring relationships with young people. And specifically, we use a lot of hip hop, a lot of electronic music, and then media creation to be able to earn these conversations with young people that hopefully help them to grow outside of the studio.
My name is David Higuereta. I'm a co-founder of the Business Pop program here at the David's Harp Foundation. I'm also an instructor. So the first time I came to the David's Harp Foundation, I was 17 years old. I was shocked when I saw space, because I saw the big board and I saw all the equipment. And I remember Brandon just said, so what do you guys want to do? Go ahead, do what you want to do. Because never in my life I had somebody pour in 4 hours of his life into me for free. So that was pretty cool. Then I came every week after that, and I never left, and 4 years later they can't get rid of me.
At the David's Harp Foundation, I think we resonate with connection in the same way that the Lewis Prize does. We strive every single class period to create authentic connection with young people, and we have a wide range of programs. That's because we have a wide range of youth that are participating. We work with young people that are opportunity youth, and that looks like everybody from foster care youth all the way to youth that are actually incarcerated. So the programming itself is all centered around music mostly, and art, and what we do is we try to use that platform in different spaces to be able to help young people get from one place to another.
I think music is different because music directly involves the soul. You're putting in your pain, your love, your emotions. So the beautiful part about music here is it's like the glue that unifies everybody that's in this room.
Celebrating who we are in the art and our commonalities is how we get past the differences that separate us. I believe we have, as a creative community, and specifically the David's Harp Foundation, we have the platform to be able to do that. And so that's what we're going to commit to doing.
That was great. That was great. There I am. Yeah. Thanks for being with us today, Brandon. And I just have to say, I love that video, and I love how you say we do our part to earn mentoring relationships with young people. That's a beautiful thing to say.
No, that's the truth. That's the only way to do it, right? In respect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been great getting to know you through the Lewis Prize for Music. And I think we met for the first time in January when the awards were officially announced. But this process started for you in getting to know the Lewis Prize for Music about this time last year, which seems like a long time ago, just with the state of the world and everything going on. But it was just a year ago. So I'm just curious, when you found out about the Lewis Prize for Music, just where were you in your organization? Give me a little context.
Sure.
What was going on, and what was it like to find the application and think about applying, and what it would mean for you to apply?
Yeah. So as an organization, we were really small. We still are relatively small, but about a $360,000 budget, and I mean, small but mighty. You know, definitely. So as a founder, we took really 7 years to figure out what it meant to be able to use the platform of art to earn these relationships with young people. In the process, there's a young man named Austin, who I actually had a conversation with yesterday, that really was the first young man to come in and say, "Hey, I'm willing to do this, and I'm willing to like thrive outside of this space in order to be here." And that was a weird thing for me as a founder. I was in a project studio at the time in Southeast San Diego, and allowing young people to trade good grades for studio time was kind of my idea to thin out neighborhood youth, because there was a ton of kids, like way more than my garage studio could really hold. And this one particular young man really just was like, "Hey, if I gotta pay with grades, I'll do that." And he really turned some things around. And that was a really simple idea, but the idea that this was such a powerful platform for me, it was the beginning of that understanding, and how we could take the platform and earn relationships with it was the kind of the next iteration and move for us. So coming into right before we applied for the Lewis Prize, fast forward, probably 10 years from that point, we really had a developed pedagogy that was really and a culture in a way that we went about earning these relationships that was really developed, but the systems that we had as an organization weren't developed. So it's like upside down, like pyramid looking thing, where the work is super strong, but the support for it was not strong. And as a leader of color, I think learning the systems that needed to be in place in order to bring that kind of investment was a process, because there wasn't really, there wasn't a checklist for it, So the Lewis Prize application felt like impossible height. Like, this is something that probably isn't a reality for us because we're so small. After being told by multiple philanthropists that, "Oh, come back when your budget's at $500,000 or stuff like that," it didn't seem realistic, but I still wrote the LOI because I felt like after reading the description about systems change, we fit it. So I wrote it. I mean, I write all the grants, but And now I have a young person riding with me, but yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting coming into that time period, knowing we were small, knowing that this was a great opportunity, but that it might not be attainable. And then do you put the time and effort toward it? And so, it worked out obviously in the end, but that's where we were. We were small but mighty, and we're still small but mighty, but developing those systems underneath.
That makes complete sense. And just thinking about what you were saying, small but mighty, and having all the components in place for young people, really thinking about them and their holistic needs, but also their strengths and who they are, and supporting them. That's a big part of what the Lewis Prize tries to lift up, is organizations and groups of organizations, leaders in communities who think about young people first, and who they are and how great they are and how to help them shine. And in that context, I know leadership and youth leadership are big components of our work and what we believe in and who we support. Could you talk a little bit about what that means to you, just the kind of the spectrum of what leadership looks like at the David's Harp Foundation?
Sure. Yeah. So because we spent those years really developing who we were, I mean, youth leadership is authentic in our space. It's in the video you met David for a second, and he described and introduced himself as the founder of the Business Pod program, because that's who he is. He founded that program, and he gets on my nerves sometimes. But I love him. It's like we are working authentically together in a creative community with young people. There's no, I mean, it's authentic. It's not relegated to a youth board in our space. It's throughout the organization. And so that when I was doing the application for the Lewis Prize, that really was something that kind of helped to assure me that I was in the right place. I think it's really important that the funding, that there be this kind of understanding in philanthropy between the funder and the organization, that there's a synergy. And that was a point of connection when so many questions were about how are youth showing up in the space. I think that was one of the moments during the application process that I just was like, okay, this is actually, like, I really hope we get this to be able to work with these people. And I'm glad that we did, because literally what you guys bring as a team is valuable. It's super valuable to be able to just, tap into your thought partnership. So.
Great. And we'll talk a little bit later also about just what it means to be an Accelerator Awardee and the different components of the award and what the Lewis Prize provides. But I also, I'm just curious, because one of the things that I love about getting to know people who are applying for the Lewis Prize, or people who have who we've met in other ways, is just the many, many, many examples of how youth can lead within an organization. And very tangible examples, I think, are always helpful to hear, because there are so many. So I'm just curious, could you just share 2 or 3 ways that young people really do take a lead within your organization?
Sure. Yeah. So by 2029, we have a goal, an internal goal, to be able to turn over the entire organization to young people. So former participants, program participants. We have a program called the Emerging Leaders Program that is preparing young people for these positions already. So I can't wait to hand my business card over to somebody in 2029 to allow them to take this vision to the next level. So in a core way, youth are central to our vision, our mission going forward. So if you rewind from that, young people are in all spaces. It's really interesting to, matter of fact, the only space they're not in is the board of directors space, because I haven't found anyone that wants to do it yet. Everybody's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, come on, this is important. They're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So we're still recruiting for the board of directors, but going backwards from that, young people really like to take positions that are working with other young people, and that's what we've noticed. It's so amazing to watch the transformation that happens when you teach what you learn, when you give back what you've been given. The connection that happens between young people. Now that's my passion, like being able to watch that. And then also as a leader of color, with this emerging leaders program, being able to bring young people along with me to meetings so that they can see how and participate in the process of what it looks like to be an arts administrator. It's been really, really, really rewarding for me personally. But that's how young people are showing up in our space as leaders. In addition, I mean, everything's kind of on the table as far as programming. Young people are constantly tweaking and twisting program. Hey, I want to. The last I want to was, hey, I want to do live streaming. We want to learn how to do live streaming in this COVID situation. Okay, well, we're learning how to do live streaming. And my thing with the young people is, if you can imagine it, we can do it, but I'm not going to do it. Right. So like, you got to get ready to work. If you want to do it, we can come alongside and we can do it, but get ready to put your skin in the game too. So that's always a fun conversation.
Yeah. That sounds like it's a never-ending supply of interesting ideas, and helping young people really live their own ideas is a lot of fun.
It is.
One of the other Accelerator Awardees, Community Music Works out of Providence, Rhode Island, has young people on their board. They have a couple of youth representatives, and they're in the process of looking at what maybe a youth committee looks like, just to have it feel like it's a little bit more of a level playing field on a board of directors. But that just made me think of that as well. That's what I was saying, is so many great strategies. And we really love hearing people's specific ideas about how youth are incorporated into decision-making within the organizations. Other big areas of the Accelerator Award application and important to the Lewis Prize are around community, equity, and of course, music. And I know when you and I had a conversation preparing for today, you started to really think about how those are dynamically related to each other.
Yes.
But I'm just curious if you want to touch on any of those other parts of what the Accelerator Award application is all about.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the questions from last year's, I haven't seen this year's, was how does equity and inclusion show up in your space? That was a really interesting question for me to answer, because equity and inclusion for us looked like deconstructing equity and inclusion at the table with young people. So we tend to work with young people in this community that have gang affiliations. And so celebrating gang affiliations at the table with other people celebrating gang affiliations wasn't practical, right? Not that we weren't honoring the neighborhoods where these young people come from. I'm actually in the community. I live in the community that we serve, but and grew up in it. So I understand the deep ties in that way, but it wasn't going to work. So what we did was we turned inclusion and diversity on its head and said, we are going to celebrate the commonalities, the things that we share in art. We're going to center in art in a way that's really powerful. We're going to respect our differences, but celebrate our commonalities. So that's a whole kind of different way that shows up in our space. And that's trickled down through like all of the social issues. And what it's done is it's created a cohesive community of learners, of young people that wouldn't have normally connected and are beginning to connect. A good example of that is in our work inside East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility. There was a young man that was going through our program, and in that process of him going through our program, he was able to become a junior instructor, and in that process, he was working with rival gang members, but doing it not as himself, but literally putting on this new shirt, this new identity as an audio engineer, and being able to show up in a space with a brand new identity that allowed him to really see past some of the things that would have been sticking points. So there's all kinds of fun stuff that happens when you start talking about that. But the application itself was really cool because it went beyond the typical questions. Also, if you're listening and you're in the process of filling it out, you probably already understand this, but like, it's not a lot of copy, cut, and paste in that situation. Those questions are really kind of almost core. Like, I find myself getting choked up a lot in that process of describing things, and then also some things were settled for me. I know we're going to talk about that later, but yeah, that's one of the examples of D&I question.
That's great. And we're going to get to hear some music a little bit later on as well. You're a musician yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, how does your personal musicianship come into David's Harp Foundation?
How does my personal? Well, I freestyle rap a lot, but that wasn't my. I was a jazz musician, so for me, introducing kids to Coltrane and Miles Davis is something that I like to do in the form of sampling. So teaching kids to sample, but also exposing them to different art forms is something that I like to do in practice personally. But my musicianship shows up in just meeting the young people where they are, to be honest. So, and that's how all of our instructors, our artist mentors, artistship shows up. It doesn't show up in a way that's, let me tell you what I can do, let me show you what you should do. It comes to the table and says, we have a space, what do you want to create today? And that exchange that allows a young person to not just sit there and go, okay, I'm going to be taught something. But the empowerment that happens that says, here are tools, I know how to use them, I can show you how to use them as you create what you want. Let's celebrate your art. Let me become trap, hip hop, I mean, whatever. I mean, that's the constant conversation when we have staff meetings is, what are you doing that is not of you? Like, share something that's not of you that you're doing for young people. And I think that that's a great question that recenters us back on that core value of making sure that we're meeting young people where they are.
That's beautiful. And I also hear you saying that you authentically show up side by side. So you're there in service of the young person, but you're vulnerable as well and transparent and available. And that definitely shows through in how young people move through your space. We have another video that we can show that highlights one of the young people that is in your community and a part of your community. Do you want to set this up in any way for us?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the video is actually a student created video. Our business pod program that you heard David talk about founding is actually in its going on its third generation of young people right now. But this video was from a time when David was in the middle of that program, and he was tasked with creating internal content for pay for us. And then he was doing also work for Sony and the San Diego Symphony. So this was a video that he decided he wanted to tell about our community, about a young man named Delore, who we met inside East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility and received back into our program doing audio engineering when he came out. So yeah, student created video.
Awesome. So let's see a little bit of that video now, showing the great work that David did and others in the business pod to make it about Delore.
Hey everybody, so for this month we're doing something a little bit different. We're gonna tell Delore's story. Why? Because it was a big month for him, and a win for Delore is a win for all of us and a win for you guys because you've been supporting us with so much passion. Here's Brandon, here's Jesus, and this is Delore.
When I first went to juvenile hall while a youth commit, it really changed my life. I got to meet people that actually helped me navigate through life the way I should be living it instead of how I want to be living it. To work here, it feels really good knowing that I'm helping people that been through the same things I have, gangbanging, homelessness. So it feels good knowing that I can help them avoid those things that I went through so they could change their life for the better. and I'm working on my last chapter so I could graduate and go to either City College or Southwestern College, because that's a mandatory requirement for the business pod. I'm actually on my last chapter right now. I just need to do 2 more sections, and I'm just done. I'm done with high school. In high school,
all right.
Some video footage of we can play in high school.
He's done.
High school.
He's done.
Done.
We just turned in the last assignment for school work.
No more high school, college time.
My name is Amanda Wallace. I work directly with students, teachers, and also with community arts organizations to help connect our students with arts opportunities. The partnership that I have with David's Harp is one of the things that I'm most proud about. This was turned into something where the students were able to go in to work with other students, other incarcerated younger people, and take a leadership role. And for many students, this was the first time that they were seen in a leadership role, and also that they saw themselves, most importantly, in a leadership role. A student that comes to mind is Delore Campbell. He's a young man who was in one of our detention facilities. He was one of the first that came through this internship model. He connected immediately with the staff at David's Harp, and he has been attending at the David's Harp location proper. And recently, Brandon actually just texted me a picture with Delore with his first paycheck. His first paycheck. And the smile on that young man's face is going to be something that fuels my work forever.
That was great. I know whenever I see videos that I produced a while ago and see them again, it brings back new thoughts. What is it like for you to watch that video now?
You know, it's interesting. It's really interesting. So David and Jesus, the two young people that you saw in that video, have launched their own company now. And so that is super cool. It's called Warehouse Media. It's warehouse.media. And I always plug them. They do great work. And Delore is ups and downs. We actually met last week and he wasn't doing too well. So he's still in the fold and really trying to make it happen, but it's just tough. Life's up and downs. You know, transparently, like we approach this in understanding that, like our program is more just a community, to be honest. Like it's a program because it has to be, but really it's a community of young people that that understand that they have adults that care, that will walk through the process within the ups and downs. We call it walking in the mud together. If you have to pause because you're tired, or if you sink down for a second, we're there. We're just going to sit here and we'll wait. And then when you're ready, we're going to continue forward. And if I sink, I hope you'll do the same for me. And that happens sometimes. We've had, matter of fact, there's a young lady named Livy in the program that wrote a letter to one of our artist mentors encouraging him. And every time he talks about it, he cries. So everybody always mentions it. And it's such a community of support that it really is. It's pretty amazing to watch. But so when I see that, it's like ups and downs, you know, to watch young people launch a successful company in the middle of a pandemic and have it take care of their family. Jesus, both of his parents are now laid off, but he's earning money for the household doing video. And then to see Delore in a moment of reset for him. And I was just texting with him a little bit ago, and watching him reset right now is hopeful. And so yeah, it's ups and downs. It's like, wow.
Yeah, that's a beautiful metaphor of walking through the mud together. And I heard someone recently describe a definition of systems change as how we are accountable to each other. How do we know that we're accountable to each other? And to me, that's what walking through the mud is all about, how we walk that walk together. And systems change is a new part of the application. I think it's something that the Lewis Prize has believed in terms of a vision for what we want young people to achieve in their communities and why we support organizations that support creative youth development. but it's a much more active part of the application. And so we have defined that in a couple of different ways, but I'm just curious, when you hear systems change, what does that mean to you?
Well, the funny thing about it is this application helped me to define how we were doing systems change, because before, I mean, okay, so what are like, okay, how are we affecting change at all, right? So there's a theory of change that most organizations have, and we've traditionally stayed away from documents like that because of the just pouring into authenticity. But it made me pull back as a leader to say, how are we changing, and are we changing systems? Like, should I even authentically be writing this? And what I noticed was we were. And so for us, that looked like a very micro version, a micro kind of pedagogy or methodology that we were bringing to systems change work. That was, as we looked at it, really affecting systems. And so just to kind of pinpoint that, when we go inside East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility or inside Kearney Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility, both here, the young people that we work with are serving 360 days to 540 days of incarceration. And so this gives us a long time to be able to develop relationships. Our ultimate goal is for young people to not be in that space and for that space to not be in existence. So, but how do you navigate within a system that's set up, and how can we provide opportunities for young people to see themselves in a different light? That was our goal going in. So we went in, we met this young man named Frank. Instantly, Frank didn't see himself in a creative way at all, but really was drawn to audio engineering. He was having a really rough time in the facility, fighting constantly at odds with the staffing there. And what happened was Frank, as he began his audio engineering journey, he really started to see himself in a light that he hadn't before, that allowed the staff to see him in a light that they hadn't before. And so when you start talking about systems change, we really look at systems change as, how are we rehumanizing the space, right? How are we rehumanizing officers for young people? And how are we rehumanizing young people for officers through our genuine connection to both? So that's how we see systems change now. But it was really through that application that I was able to stop for a second, just living life with young people, and say, okay, wait a minute. Are we changing systems, and how? And through that process, we've developed that even further. And I think that that's the great thing about the way that you wrote the application. It allows for that interpretation. And I know it varies, it's broad. It doesn't have to be what you think. And I think that a lot of people on the call, I think you have an opportunity to be able to look at your organization right now and to stop for a second and to see how these authentic relationships are changing the world around them, right? And it's a great moment, I think, and it's valuable even by itself. So I thank you for that. I hope that answers the question, but the systems are changing. We got East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility contracting like crazy, young people coming back out into the community, recidivism, the things that we're doing to help young people in different spaces see themselves differently is working. And we're also on the other end of the spectrum inside elementary schools, taking young people, employing them as teaching artists with young people that are struggling in elementary schools to stop that pipeline. And we call it the pipeline to productivity now. And so, yeah, that's the way that we see systems change. But I love the fact that the Lewis Prize sees systems change as wanting to know how you see it. You know, I love that about you.
Thank you. And because we know that if you're going to be responsive to young people in their community, that looks different everywhere you go. And I think you when you said, did I answer it correctly? The answer is yes, because you answered it in your own authentic way. And I think you did touch on, we tried to provide some guidance of what we do mean, just because we believe it's good to be clear.
Sure.
So you definitely talked to some of what we have defined as the macro side of systems change, and seeing how we see each other and see ourselves in more equitable and human ways. And you also really touched on what you're doing in terms of civic systems change, working with the juvenile justice system and policy in San Diego. And we didn't say that at the top, but you're in San Diego.
Yes.
And also with the school district. And just to give people another example, could you share just the kinds of conversations I know you've been in because of COVID and creating safe spaces for young people and the seat that you have at the table with some of those conversations? Can you just share one example that way too?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're right in the middle of all these conversations about what it looks like to have equitable distance learning. And so we very early on, as we shifted away from the studio, it was really sad. We shifted away from the studio to this distance learning model. Instantly, we were thrown into a deeper, broader conversation, national conversation about the technical aspects of how you can do art, particularly hip hop music production with young people at a distance. And then secondly, what it meant to be able to bridge some of these inequitable systems, technological systems, right? So access to internet, like bad infrastructure in the communities that we serve, poor cellular infrastructure even, to where you can't get a kid a hotspot because it's just glitchy and what's called packet loss. So like learning how to navigate those things was something that we instantly went into when COVID hit. And as it's gone along, we stopped and we communicated with our young people to say, what are you doing? How's it going? How's school going once school started back up at a distance? And what we found was 92% of the kids that we serve were not participating in distance learning school at least half the time, which means they were at risk of failing this year. So we went into really creating internet hub, using the studios behind me as incentive for young people to come do their distance learning school workload, and then participate in programming afterwards. So that's what we're about 2 weeks away from launching. It is crazy as the governmental kind of restrictions and things continue to change. We're flowing with it. We've come up with all kinds of COVID plans staged, and we've been talking about that nationally as well. But it's really about just being responsive to the young people in this season. Part of our mission is education and access to education. So it's very core to our mission to be present to help young people navigate that system in this particular time.
Thank you. And I mentioned Community Music Works, but the other Accelerator Awardee from last year is My Voice Music out of Portland, Oregon. And their organization is really looking at mental health and thinking about how young people have access to music in many mental health facilities. But I think what I heard you say about the quality of the relationship with one young person and what is the ripple effect that creates in a community of other young people and with other artists, and then what is the ripple effect that creates within the different community sites and systems that young people interact with. We have an essay series coming out very soon where you and Sebastian from Community Music Works and Ian from My Voice Music contributed. Yeah. And I know I loved, it's just about to come, it's hot off the press very soon. But I really loved what you said about one young person, Frank, who said he knows he has people to trust as he navigates systems. And that kind of, that says a lot. Just very quickly, and for everyone, after the initial application process, there are a few more parts of the awarding process. And if you want to comment on them, you can, you don't have to, but there was a site visit this year. Those site visits will be digital. They won't be in person, but we will have some kind of video get to know you session. And there's also a more robust RFP, a second round. So just curious if you want to say anything about the other parts of the awarding process.
Sure. Yeah. So the site visit was really cool. It happened on a day where the studios behind me were filled with with young people from the detention facility. So we have a program where if young people navigate through the process, they can then be selected for this field trip, which is them coming to do music at the studio instead of us bringing studio backpacks inside. And so the site visit was on that same day, so it was buzzing at the studio during a time 9-10 a.m. when it normally isn't, right? It normally kind of ramps up throughout the day. But it was very cool to be able to see Mr. Lewis come out to these site visits and participate in the process in a way that I don't think you typically see philanthropists do. And I was really encouraged by that. It showed really what the Lewis Prize is about, I think, in an authentic way, in that somebody would care enough to come to the space to be able to see exactly what it is, and not in an inspection way, but in really with the curiosity to see how it is that kids are showing up. I mean, really with the intent to see how young people were doing. I really appreciated that, because I feel like the young people that we serve get relegated to, oh, bring them in, have them say something real quick and send them back out of the room. But I feel like your team was really focused in and dedicated to really checking on the well-being of the young people in our space. And that was really cool. That was really, really cool. As a founder, I really appreciated that, especially because one day when I turn this over to a young person, right, I hope that people in the community would still be checking on the well-being of young people and having that primary. So
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, we just went through another funding round, a community response fund, because of what's happening with COVID-19. And Dan Lewis, the founder of the Lewis Prize for Music, wanted to speak with all 32 of the leaders of the organizations that received those grants. And so we did phone calls because he loves learning, and he loves learning from new people that he meets. Your thoughtfulness also reminds me that as a part of our selection process, we have young people who are readers and who are a part of the process. And I know last year when you were awarded, you and young people from your organization wrote thank you notes to all the young people that were a part of our selection panel. So thank you for that thoughtfulness. We're going to turn to Q&A right now, and to get us started, we had one question come in that was my last question for you. So people can please start asking those questions. We'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A right now. But one of the questions was, beyond the substantial monetary contribution of $500,000, how else has the Lewis Prize supported your work in community? So if you could just tell us a little bit about that and just what you're up to now. What's David Harp's foundation up to?
Sure. So Thought Partnership. This team is so talented from top to bottom. I can't even tell you, like, being able to be in the room with them, the connections that they have, but just a Thought Partnership, being able to access that. And I mean, I sent Ann an email the other day with a quick question about, hey, we're looking to do some different evaluation stuff. Can you connect us to, or do you know anybody? She's like, of course, this person, that person, that. I mean, that level of Thought Partnership is rare in our community. So definitely appreciate that. What are we up to now? Besides launching this massive distance learning hub, we're still operating at a distance with young people creating music. I mean, this is what young people love to do, and so they are doing albums. Really, they're doing video. We have young people that in our business pod that are doing internal communications videos for Sony right now during COVID. We have young people in East Mesa and in the juvenile detention facilities that are right now building these relationships, especially with GRF, the Girls Rehabilitation Facility, being able to forge those relationships. And just if you're out there, if you're having a hard time with this whole digital situation, we just took our mind off of education and was like, okay, how can we be entertaining at a time when kids just sometimes need interactive entertainment? So we're doing beat battles, and we're doing freestyle battles, and we're having kids come up to the screen doing sounds, and instructors are incorporating them into beats, and we're doing all kinds of just entertaining things, but doing also our check-in and our circling to make sure that we're connecting with young people. So that's been very successful.
Great. And I know also thinking about your goal of 2029 and turning the organization over, you're doing a lot right now around infrastructure and just building out what you said about that pyramid to have things feel a little bit more balanced.
Yes. So yeah, from an administrative standpoint, that is the focus. And COVID did interrupt it like dramatically, but right now we're getting back into the flow of what does it look like to make this organization have a foundation, a base, and then bring young people along with that base to teach them how to work in it.
Great. And I will say the Lewis Prize for Music, the entire team gets involved in supporting Accelerator Awardees. So we have a field learning team that helps think about learning labs and creating opportunities for people to learn together. Also, we're producing some videos side by side and using local community talent to do that. And the Lewis Prize is helping support make those videos that are best practice videos of each of the organizations, hopefully as a resource for your own organization, but also to share with the field. Our communications team is always happy to spread good news, and if we can help promote what's happening, we're happy to do that. And our research team also compiles a lot of data, and these essays that are being created are one of the products or the tools that will come out of knowledge and research. So, and we're always learning. This is year 2 of the Lewis Prize for Music. So I will say personally, it's exciting to be a part of it as it's forming and being able to listen and hear what kind of supports make the most sense for people. So we're still in build mode ourselves. Let's go to some more questions. Is that okay, Brandon?
Sure, please.
Great. This one is for you. What was your proposal preparation process? That's fun to say, proposal preparation process. How have you managed to fulfill your expectations, especially given this critical time?
Right. So,
I think, is that to you or is that to me? You can go ahead and say what it was like to you, and then
okay.
I'll answer from Lewis Prize as well. And
Sure,
if anyone wants to clarify, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the proposal preparation process was irrelevant. I've never written a grant like this in my life. Like thinking about the questions that were asked, writing in first person, that doesn't happen on a grant, but it's fundamentally changed the way that I've approached grant writing, and that the way that I'm teaching young people to write grants right now. I think it's fundamentally changed the way using that first person voice. And so from an equity standpoint, having to learn to write grants in third person and make it sound like a grant writer. And then having this challenge that paradigm to say, no, we really want to know about you and about what's going on here. I really appreciated that. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to take authentic soul that's going on and take it and make it sound like a grant. That's so frustrating. So this process was the complete antithesis of that, and I was just really grateful for it. And then you want to answer from your side? And...
Yeah, from our side, we looked at what happened last year, and we got a lot of feedback, both from people who applied as well as the many readers from around the country that read LOIs and were a part of the jury process later on in the selection process. We crunched a bunch of data as well and did our best to be responsive to the field. Another question here is the Lewis Prize looking for organizations who are changing existing inequitable systems or creating new systems for themselves, such as funding channels that are missing? Great question. That's my question. You can say what you would hope we would do as well if you want to add, Brandon. But I would say yes and. I think we have had conversations about the need for disrupting systems and thinking of freedom schools as one example that really, I think, look to say, how do we do things differently and how do we create our own narrative about what we want a system to look like? as well as people who say the systems in front of us, if we are civic contributors in a democracy, it is our job to work within them and make them better and try to fix them and advocate. And we know that systems in our country have been built in ways that they don't work for all people. And so some of it is a redesign, and some of it is how do you get to that redesign from within. So I think what I would say is we are looking for you in applying to answer things in your authentic way. And I think if something translates because it's important for one young person, and that's important for 10 young people, and that's important for an entire city of young people, we are open to hearing what those solutions are.
Great. I don't have anything to add to that. That's awesome.
Other questions?
While you're waiting for a question, one thing that I was curious about going in was what would have been the time commitment, like what, and I don't know if people have already started to write, but man, let me tell you, it really was a soul searching type of writing that was happening as a leader to dig deep into your why. And so, like, this isn't the typical copy, cut, and paste, have somebody else do it, you look over it type scenario. We're not to that point as an organization anyway, but like, I know that there are organizations that have that mechanism, and this is not it. I don't think that you would be successful if you applied that model to this. It really is going to take a leader to sit down and write in an authentic voice to be able to be heard in this particular grant. That's not all grants, right? That's mostly not all grants, but that's this grant for sure.
Great. 2 other questions came in. This person says, first, thank you that the Lewis Prize does this. It's so helpful for bettering communities and organizations. Thank you for saying thank you. How is the Lewis Prize funded to be able to give back to others? So the Lewis Prize for Music was established through the founder, Dan Lewis, who has committed $20 million to fund organizations and initiatives in creative youth development over 5 years. We are in year 2 of the Lewis Prize for Music, so we look forward to years to come of being able to give back. And the second question is for Brandon. Alice Cooper's Solid Rock Teen Centers in Phoenix, Arizona has so many similar methods and programs. Would you be open to have our teens at our recording studio create something with your teens?
Of course, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. If you can connect us in or whatever, that would be great.
Happy to go. Yeah,
that would be great.
And I'm so glad you asked this question, Phoenix, Arizona, Alice Cooper Solid Rock Teen Center, because if the Lewis Prize for Music, if our team can be a resource, regardless of if you apply, regardless of if you receive the award, we are here to support creative youth development and to support people who commit to young people in those ways. So please, anyone on this webinar, if you have a question and you want to reach out with it in a way that we can help, we're happy to do our part.
Oh, wait, let me rephrase too, because I got in trouble with this one time by the young people. Yes, if they want to do that. I got in trouble one time. I was like, all right, guys, I got this thing. They were like, I want to do that. I was like, now you're going to embarrass me. Okay. No, but no. So yeah, we definitely would love to connect with you for sure.
Great. Another question about systems change and whether you view goals like system disruption and countering internalized racism part of systems change. I'll follow Brandon's lead. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we see that as a part of systems change. Absolutely.
Yeah. I had a funder one time ask me a question. How can you would you bank your organization on the fact that you have academics as part of your mission when you can't control it? And I just laughed and I said that the kids that we serve, and that we love, just showing up and being present in their academic process with the teacher absolutely fundamentally changes the relationship that they have, because they don't have advocates a lot of the times in those spaces. So like, we just need to rethink as arts organizations that love kids, how we can show up in different spaces and utilize the just our adulthood even to bring change in those spaces and those systems, and let alone something like racism. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's very simple, you know. Yeah.
Great. Another question, I'd like more clarity on how far along our change initiative must be in reaching tipping point in order to apply for the grant. That's a great question. And what I would say, and you heard from Brandon's example, I think the way I would answer it is, if you think about an investment of $500,000, you should have a clear vision for what that would look like for your organization. And so if you can really actively say what that would go toward and what it would mean, I think that's the best way to see how far you are from a tipping point. The Lewis Prize Accelerator Awards are also multi-year commitments, and we have spread them out for the few people. Sorry, I just needed a sip of water and I took a quick gulp of my own saliva. Okay, we spread them out across multi-years. And what I was trying to say is that for the 3 Accelerator awardees from last year, they are different. One is 3 years, one is 4 years, one is 5 years. So I think I would say, if you can think about $500,000 within a 3 to 5 year time period, that's the best way to think about how to state your vision and what it would mean to apply at this stage of your organization's development. I think that's all we have time for today, but I wanted to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded, and so we will make that available on our website.
Real quick, man, if I could, there's a pretty good question here in the chat that talks about internal DEI work.
Sure.
I don't know if I can kind of respond to it. I mean, I don't work for the Lewis Prize, but they have one of the most dynamically diverse staffs. Like Duluth Smith has done a job in putting together this dream team, primarily of women and women of color, that I can't even tell you how dynamic is not even the word. Like, it really is a dream team. And they do have an internal compass when it comes to what it really looks like to bring authenticity to the space in philanthropy, and it's really intentional. So I would say definitely take a look at their website, take a look at the people on the website and the work that they're doing. Man, I'm like, can I have some? Keep the money, give me the team. They're amazing. I will say that the rest of it is well received, though. I know that the process itself of how people are selected is not even Daniel Lewis, so that's really interesting. Like, he, as a philanthropist, stepped completely away from the space and Duluth put in a position where, like, they're not even making the decisions. And so it really is some forward-thinking stuff happening. But I appreciate the authenticity of that question. I think it needed to be at least addressed, because that's real. Like, that's real. That really isn't happening in a lot of spaces. And I think that the intentionality that I got to see after the questions that were asked of me as to how they came up with these particular awardees, it showed the intentionality behind continually making the process better to be as inclusive as possible. So I will say that, and yeah, they're doing the work.
Thank you for saying that. And just to add, because the question was, what kind of DEI work does the Lewis Prize do internally and organizationally? Recognizing that many people in leadership are white men, and that in the first round of awardees, 2 of the 3 awardees were white men. And I would say, just being on the Lewis Prize team, that we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion every day in our practice. and that we are doing things to look at representation across our board. And as Brandon was pointing to the team and who is a part of the team from a racial representation standpoint, we think about it every day. And something that a good friend of mine, Ayanna Cole, said is we move at the speed of trust. And so I will say that to Brandon's point, we recognize where we are and we work every day to take steps to be as equitable as we hope to portray externally in our funding mechanisms. So thank you. Thank you for addressing that.
That was a great question.
And my team members are also reminding me that our internal work at the Lewis Prize, we are in the process of beginning that work internally, and that we are hiring some people to support our work internally and continue to look at what that means. It's the same thing in philanthropy as it is in Brandon's work. What starts with one person ripples out to 10, ripples out to 20. So we take that seriously. Great. Thanks everyone for being here today. And this has been a really great conversation. I could talk with you, Brandon, all day long, every day, and learn new things. And I hope that people really got a lot out of this today, and that you will continue to stay engaged, and that we'll continue to learn from each other and from people like Brandon. I'm going to share my screen just for a couple last minute points and take us out with some music. So give me a moment here. Please stay connected with us and keep asking those really hard questions and those great questions. And if you need more support in the application process, the reminder, the deadline is August 21st. More information you can look on the website. You can look in the frequently asked questions section on the website. You can look to these webinars that we've produced both on July 30th and today. And if you need to ask more specific questions at any time, the lewisprize.org/contact us will take you to our team members, and we're happy to answer questions. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Great conversation, great questions. And Brandon, look forward to all the things that continue to happen.
Yeah, Stan, it's exciting. I'm really excited to connect, and good luck to everyone. I know there's some great work happening out there. I can't wait till we can map this and I can really learn from the room, because there's so much rich, man. So thank you. I really appreciate the Lewis Prize, and I thank you guys for just showing up. Appreciate that.
Great. We have one last piece of music. Do you want to take us out with what this is? Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so as we were leaving for COVID, our teaching artists were kind of sad. And they got with the students and did this song called 6 Feet. So it was super early on, and there's just a whole lot of emotion and frustration about things and confusion. Nobody really knew what this was. So this is 6 Feet. That's just only way I can really announce it.
It's got a great vibe to take us out. Thanks everyone for being here. And at the end of the music, you can take yourselves out of the webinar and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everybody.
Doors closed and hope choking on the deadly strand 19. Every shelf is looking empty. You got walls up, you walled up, trying to keep out all the bad things. But you know it ain't that easy. Feeling like you're gonna shut it down, and you're feeling it a lot now that everything's on lockdown. Gotta reevaluate now. Maybe we forgot how. I know that it's hard, walking in the dark. Social isolation make you stay up on your card. Know you wanna go outside, just stay inside and face it. Only got one chance, I ain't gonna waste it. 6 feet away from me, won't keep
embarrassing. They said to throw up them barriers, don't you let them in. They said you might be a carrier for the weapon. But when I head to the island, lead to depression. Everybody scared to die, gotta wait in line. Who wanna take away my spine, told me stay inside. And I can take another day with the mention. And how we cool with Asian people getting demonized. Getting demonized. Can't keep me down, gotta stay up. When greed get loud, gotta pray up. When fear make a sound, I face up. I need you around, can't say enough. Can't keep me down, gotta stay up. When greed get loud, gotta pray up. When fear make a sound, I face up. I need you around, can't say enough.
6 feet away from me, won't keep me away. Now you're trying to push no. Separation keep growing. 6 feet away from me, won't keep me away. Now you're trying to hurt no way. 'Cause that ain't gonna solve problems. 6 feet away from me, won't keep me away. Now you're trying to hurt no way. Separation keep growing. 6 feet away from me, won't keep me away. Now you're trying to hurt no way. 'Cause that ain't gonna solve problems. 6 feet away from me, won't keep me away.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.